So welcome, so much welcome, Terry Real, to the ASA integration community and to the people on our mailing list who will hear this conversation. Thank you so much for coming to speak to me today.
A delight. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. You really are my absolute hero, because this book that I'm showing here, Us, is just one of the most extraordinary books that I've read ever, and I think it's changing the world already. And I hope I've talked about it so much on the ASA platform that I hope that everybody will have read it by now, that people in our mailing list may not have done yet. And also to say, Terry, that we're going to be having a book club within the ASA integration community, so that every month we're going to talk about a different chapter. So
Oh,
chapter one
marvelous.
month, chapter two another month, because there's so much information in it. We're going to take a whole month to really stay with each chapter. But I wondered if, first of all, you could kind of tell us a bit about yourself, just a brief introduction, and tell us a bit about why you wrote this book and what it means to you.
My name is Terry Real. I live in Massachusetts. I've been married 40 years to the fabulous family therapist Belinda Berman. I have two boys, one straight, one gay, 33, 36. I'm 73 years old. I've been doing this for 40 years or so. Before I was a therapist, I was in literature, but that was 9 years ago. I've written 4 books, and the last 3 have all been about relationships and couples. The first was about men and what patriarchy does to boys and men. What I realized was that the cure for the wound of disconnection which haunts men is reconnection. And that what was curative was teaching people how to live what I call a relational life on this planet. And for your purposes in particular, what I speak about is what I call ecological wisdom, which is patriarchy and what I call in the new book, Us, the toxic culture of individualism. It deludes us into thinking that we stand apart from nature. That's what the word individual means. And that we stand above nature and in control of it. That's patriarchy, which women participate in as much as men. Whether the nature we're trying to control is our bodies, I've got to lose 10 pounds, or our minds, I've got to stop thinking so negatively, our partners, certainly our kids, the world. And this needs to be replaced with a new paradigm. Our relationships are our biospheres. We're not above them, we're in them. And we move from zero-sum win-lose power struggles, which is bringing the world of patriarchy into our relational sphere, into the wisdom of what I call enlightened self-interest. It's in my interest to keep my biosphere clean because I'm breathing it. And this is a whole new world, living relationally. For example, the relational answer to the question who's right and who's wrong is who gives a damn. What matters is how are you and I going to work this thing in a way that's going to work for us. So when we move beyond individualism and patriarchy to thinking ecologically, systemically, spiritually, everything about how we handle ourselves is revolutionarily changed. And the book, Us, and my work, I have an institute. We train therapists and what I call normal people in relational skills. It's all different. And I supply a map. This is what thinking relationally looks like, and a set of tools on how to actually live it. Let me give you a quick example of thinking relationally. The true story I'll do, it's a straight heterosexual, heteronormative. She to him, I don't know how it is in the UK, but here in the States, she to him, you're a reckless driver. Him to her, you're overly anxious. And they get into what I call an objectivity battle. No, listen, you do this, you do this. No, listen, you're over. And they argue, marshal their evidence, and argue. This could go on for 40 years. Here they are, true story after one session with me. Her to him, honey, Start with that change of tone. Honey, I know you love me. Right or wrong, call me a nervous Nelly. When I'm in the car and you're driving and you tailgate and you move close to people and you switch lanes and you go fast, I get myself crazy. I know you care about me. You don't want me to be terrified every time I'm in the car next to you. As a favor to me, when I'm in the car, could you please slow down so that I don't have to be so nervous? Even to her, true story. Okay. And what could have been a fight for 40 years, I've been there, is solved in one conversation because it's not about objective reality. It's not about right or wrong. It's not about fair. It's not about all of those individualistic. It's about the relationship. As a favor to me, could you? Sure, honey, no problem. And that is a whole new world, all of us.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And even just listening to your voice, because I listened to the book on Audible as well as reading it and buying like 10 copies and giving them to my friends, which I'm sure most people do. Even hearing your voice just reminds me of there's so many rich case studies that you give and clients that you've worked with and their stories. And there's something when you listen to the book and when you read it, it feels like you're kind of downloading this new way of seeing the world and creating this us consciousness. And I'm sure it takes a bit of time to kind of practice it and get used to it. And of course, you have your relational life therapy and these tools you're talking about for people to really learn this new way. But it feels to me like when we talk about connectedness and we talk about, well, in our world, like psychedelics changing the world, we need to change our own inner worlds first. And this gives like such a good set of tools for actually creating that, the us, the middle between the you and the me, and the right and the wrong, the feel. I think you quote the Rumi quote about the field beyond right and wrong. And it's so, and the whole book feels to me like it is that field. Could you tell me, I mean, if we have time, I just wanted to quickly ask you, this book feels like it's so much more than, it feels so profound. Was there a moment for you when something shifted beyond working with couples and thinking about couples therapy into this really deep and real paradigm shifting work? Was there a moment when something shifted, or that's kind of like the kind of apple fell on your head kind of light bulb moment? Or was it just a cumulative process of working through, many couples challenges for many years?
Well, I'm a 60s kid. I grew up with psychedelics. We can talk about that. Actually, I ran away from home at 16 and lived on the streets of Philadelphia. And I earned my keep as a trip guide. I was 16. It was 1966. So I'm one of the first psychedelic therapists there are as a 16-year-old punk kid. Oh, noble warrior. We all read Timothy Leary's translation of the Book of the Dead. Oh, you're stuck in the third bardo. So I've been around this stuff for a long time. But as a 60s kid, I've always been political. When I wrote I Don't Want to Talk About It back in the 90s about men, but one of the things I was really proud of, particularly as a man, is that I was a public voice for progressive gender relations. I learned a lot from the early feminists of the 80s. I was one of the first of a generation of men, still am, unfortunately, saying patriarchy does not just do damage to women, it does damage to everybody. And the book is really about what the masculine system and patriarchy does to our sons. I talk about normal boyhood trauma under patriarchy. You learn to suppress half of who you are as a man. Vulnerability, feelings, dependency. And so I've always seen the personal as political, and I'm proud that RLT has always fanned out from the personal to the political, the cultural, even the spiritual. And so that's always been with me and always been a part of the work. I see therapists as change agents. I see therapists as cultural revolutionaries. if we stand up and we do our job right. Because the world of individualism and patriarchy does not make us happy. Happiness, it wasn't built for happiness, it was built for stability. And this new demand for intimacy and self-fulfillment is historically new. But it breaks the paradigm we've all been raised in, because the paradigm we've been raised in won't deliver that ambition. So we need a revolution. I've said to my kids, my whole life I've been a active revolutionary, and nicely paid for it. Thank you very much. So that's been my life.
Oh, that's very inspiring to hear, and I'm very, very thrilled to hear that psychedelics played a part in your early development as well. And have you seen much around the kind of psychedelic research that's happening at the moment? Do you feel like they could be part of a revolution? Do you feel like a revolution is happening? And if I can add one more question onto that for you to answer whichever bits of it you like, for men, because it really resonated what you just said about, how it hurts men too. Do you feel that what's happening at the moment in terms of like maybe a rise of the power of the feminine, of women, that actually things are getting harder for men? Or do you feel that what's happening with the rise of the feminine is including everybody?
No, I think things are getting harder for men. I think men are caught in the crossfire. After 50 years of feminism, you ask, there was a recent research, you ask little girls what makes a good woman, and I can be president of the United States, I can be an astronaut. You don't get what you got 30 years ago. You ask little boys, you get the exact same script you got 50 years ago. What makes a good man is being strong, competent, independent, all this anti-relational. The essence of traditional masculinity is invulnerability. The more invulnerable you are, the more manly you are. And now, both women, men and gay couples, non-binary folks are demanding vulnerability, intimacy, emotional connection, and men are just caught. But to a large degree, politically and culturally, the response has been a backlash. Look at my country and our former president. I mean, the rise of the right has been very much synonymous with the resurgence of authoritarian, traditional masculine mores. But my work is feminist. I don't want women to stand down. I want men to stand up and meet these men. Open your heart, learn how to be relational and connected, have the courage with help to undo traditional masculinity that was forced on you, whether you wanted it or not as a boy. Let's move beyond that. The younger the man, the easier it is to get that message through. And let's join hands and blow up the whole goddamn system. It's killing all of us.
Yes. Oh, it's so beautiful to hear you speak, and I could listen forever, but we should finish in a moment. So I guess what I'll do is, for our platform, I'm going to summarize some of the particular themes you talk about in the book for our month of Ivy, which is all around pruning our patterns that get in the way, restrict our freedom. So the one up, one down pattern, which I just think that one of your chapters, chapter 6, you cannot love from above or below. I stopped my car and sat there with tears streaming down my face, and I couldn't drive anywhere because I was like, wow. And I think I know that chapter off by heart because it was so incredibly powerful, and I'm sure for many people too. And there was
can I complete the quote?
Yes.
I talk about grandiosity and shame. We've been focused on shame. RLT is the only, we really target both. You have to come down from the one up as well as up from the one down. The quote is, you cannot love from the one up or the one down. Love demands democracy. And again, that's in your living room, and that's across the planet.
I mean, if people just have 10 spare minutes to read anything, reading even just the first few pages of that chapter is just, it really, that's world-changing stuff. The other amazing theme you talk about is this idea of the adaptive child versus the wise adult, which I'll write more about, and also you and me consciousness and us consciousness. And I think those three things are ideas that feel so easy to grasp and so transformational. So I'll write a few notes about that for our community. And beyond that, is there anything that you would say for people who want to know more about your work? Is it possible to engage in the RLT training? Is
Yeah.
it spaces, or is there a waiting list? Like how do people find out more?
No, there isn't a waiting list. If you're a therapist or a coach, mental health professional, we have about a 2-year training program. You don't have to take it all. You can also get it a la carte. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful. We have wonderful faculty, and I do a lot of the teaching. We have extraordinary experiences like what I call the couples experiential. The 2 days, 5 couples, I'm in the driver's seat. I work with one couple intensely, the others give them feedback, and then the next and the next and the next. And I debrief with the observers during lunch. And that's for mental health. For general public, there's a course on how to live relationally, how to speak up with love, how to listen and not be defensive, how to move into repair, how to cherish. But really, the fundamentals, we don't know how to do this in this culture. So come and learn. It behooves you to learn how to do it. I want to say a word about psychedelics, which is the father of family therapy is Gregory Bateson, the great anthropologist Margaret Mead's husband. And in an incredible book on substance abuse, he writes, he says that he was alcohol and drugs correct what he called the epistemological mistake, which is what I correct the delusion of individualism, that drugs and alcohol to a degree can dissolve the delusional boundary between us and the universe, and that's why we turn to it. And there are sort of more crude drugs, and then there are more refined substances that will open up your consciousness. I've been meditating for 50 years. I started off my journey with psychedelics. I do remember what Baba Ramdas said, but I like a lot. He said, psychedelics can hook you up, and you also need to know when to hang up the phone and do it yourself. So I think psychedelics can open our minds. MDMA is a heart-opening drug. Couples can say things to each other with love that they couldn't say with love before. I think it's great. You mentioned there may be some testing going on using MDMA and RLT in couples work. I'm all for it. And also, it's like training wheels. Psychedelics will do it for you. And then once you're there, you can make use of it, particularly with a trained facilitator. At some point, whether it's being able to speak openly and from the heart with your partner, or do the spiritual practice of opening up to the universe, minus your ego and boundaries, the drugs will introduce you. They'll bring you into the mansion, but if you want to live there, you have to do your own work on top of it.
Oh, yes, I so agree with that, and that's so what we're doing with our community, because it's that idea of the work begins after the session, and that's when you start to really learn how to become more connected in a kind of in your own life, in your own world. Terry, thank you so much for the work you're doing. I can't wait for people to read it. And I guess maybe one other thing we can all do is buy books, buy copies of this for the men we know, for the men we know that might not have read it. And maybe, in these times of the kind of the rising feminine, have compassion for our male colleagues and the men in our family, that actually to remember that these times are really quite difficult for them, and that maybe, like, to really build us consciousness requires maybe more compassion than we sometimes want to give, because we've got our axe to grind about the patriarchy, but we are all the patriarchy. And that's my take home from today anyway.
That's beautiful. I love the work. I love your intelligence and enthusiasm. I feel deeply appreciated in this conversation. If folks want to learn more, just go to my website, just go to terryreal.com. If you're a therapist, that will take you to our therapist website, which is relationallife.com, two L's. But start with terryreal.com and you'll go there and learn how to do this. The school of relationships called your family did not teach you how to do this. And the culture did not teach us how to do that. Not men, not women, not non-binary folks, no one. But there is what I call a relational technology, and it can be mastered and it works better. So
Yeah.
let's live together.
Oh, so inspiring, and yeah, very, very hopeful. Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you for making the time for us today.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Ooh, how do I stop recording? Oh, thank you so much.